Well, welcome everyone to the August 21st, 2024, joining the MRSC Roster webinar. We're delighted that you're here today. We have a really great panel, a mix of Washington Apex Accelerator and MRSC, who manages the statewide roster. So we'll go ahead and kick off. You are all muted. We cannot see you or hear you, but we hope that you use the chat function or the Q&A function at any time during this session. And if we don't get to your question immediately, we will definitely have time at the end and we will get your questions then. So my name is Tiffany Scroggs, and I manage the Washington Apex Accelerator program here in Washington State. And I'm going to provide a very brief 5 slides on public works contracting, just so we level set with everyone in the room here today. And then I'm going to turn it over to the team at MRSC. And we have Lisa, Theresa, and Brynn here to talk a little bit about the Rosters platform, what it is, how to use it, how to get on it, and then answer any questions that you have. So by public works, what we're talking about is a very defined definition that is set by state law. So we're talking about public works means a project for construction, alteration, repair, or improvement of a public building. State law requires the agencies award public works contracts to a responsible bidder with the lowest responsible bid. So that's kind of the environment that we're talking about here today. The small works roster is one way that public agencies will purchase construction services. And we're going to talk about all the other ways, but we're going to hone in on this one way, which is the small works roster. And what a roster is just a list of eligible contractors. So it's frequently used by agencies to compete public works projects estimated to cost $350,000 or less. If it's over $350,000, they're not going to be using the small works. That's no longer small works. They're going to be using a more formal bidding process. We're going to talk today about MRSC's rosters. There's 3 of them, and one of them is dedicated to the small works. And agencies sometimes use the MRSC roster. I think over 700 agencies are using the statewide roster that MRSC manages, but they also might have their own roster. So if you're interested in doing business with an agency, you want to double check that they're which roster they're using so you can position your firm to be in the right place at the right time. And I want to point out what a small works roster is not. So a small works roster is not a procurement portal that you can log into and see a list of bid leads. That's not this. It's not used by prime contractors right now seeking subs. So you're not going to see anything that's, a sub-prime relationship going on. And you're not going to see anything valued over that $350,000 mark. So, that's kind of what a small works roster is and what it isn't. So let's talk a little bit about how government buys construction services. So I'm zooming back out to talk about when a state and local government needs construction. So they have a lot of options. And a lot of times the options are dictated by how big of a scope the project is, how much dollars it's going to cost. And so the top 5 common methods are listed on the screen here between like design, bid, build, or maybe they have a general contractor manager going on, or maybe a design build. These are all for very sophisticated projects that are well over the $350,000 mark. If it's underneath that $350,000 mark, they're probably going to use the small works roster. But also another common method is the job order contracting. So all this to say that when you're targeting agencies in your locality, right? So if you're in Federal Way and you're trying to target the city, the county, the port, and all the other jurisdictions that are in and around Federal Way, you want to make sure that you understand how those jurisdictions are going to be purchasing the construction services you offer. And then again, position your firm to be on the roster or connect with the job order contracting prime or whatever it is that you want to do there. What's less common are energy performance contracts, unit price contracting, like an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract, that's IDIQ. Or the third one is public-private partnerships that we see a lot of times, like at the Everett military base, for example, the Navy base. Just to give you a sense of how much money we're talking about here, when last time we pulled this data, there was 47,000 public works contracts in state and local governments that totaled $10 billion in spend. So it's a big deal. There's a lot of money out there, a lot of projects. Near my house, I can hear tons of construction all around me. We got, city parks and rec building a new trail. We've got a new sewer line going in next door, and then a non-government housing development going in. So anyway, you can imagine, multiply that across all the little jurisdictions across our state, and it's $10 billion in spend. Within that, though, I want to hone in on the small works roster, because that's what we're talking about today exclusively. And that represents half of those 47,000 projects. Half of them were awarded using the roster. So that's a lot of them, and that totaled $306 million. I also want to point out that within that roster activity, half of those projects, right, were underneath what's called a new direct contracting threshold of $150,000. So when government wants to go buy something and it's only going to cost $149,000 or less, they can direct award. And so using the businesses on the roster. And so I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but I wanted to just point out the volume of contracts that are happening throughout the state and how they're buying. So with that, I don't see any questions in the chat and Q&A, so I'm going to move on to our team here, our team of experts from MRSC, to provide a rosters overview for small businesses. So Lisa, I'm glad you're here today. Please take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Yes, we have a team of three, a mighty team of three that support the rosters team. Myself, Theresa, and Brynn. You will see our smiling faces at events if you do go to events, and we are going to share our contact information at the end of the presentation so you know how to get a hold of us with any questions. So let's go to the agenda. The agenda. What are MRSC rosters? Pretty important question. We're going to talk about it and cover it. The overview of the statewide small works roster. Well, now state agencies have an option to use this small works roster, which is pretty darn cool. We're going to talk about which agencies have already been using this and how they're using it. Then we have categories. This is a big one. If you're writing any notes right now, I'd love for you to write down categories and then their reclassification. We'll address it. And then application automation. Long time ago, not too far long ago, the roster, if you applied, then Brynn and Theresa would review it and approve it. And that no longer is happening. We're having automation take over and applications. We're going to talk more about how that's done. Direct contracting. Tiffany said something about direct contracting. This is new to the small works roster, and we're going to talk about OMWB certified businesses. What are those and how it works with direct contracting. And then we have bid results. This is very new and very cool. Bid results. That is public record. You do not have to log in anywhere other than look at our site, pull up records, and you can see who won jobs within the cities and counties. We're going to talk about registration. Again, I said something about that category, so there are new categories. How to upload your capability statement, which is something that Apex helps all businesses with, capability statements. And then electronic bidding. Just be aware of how cities and counties are using software to do bidding. And then support. How are we going to support you and how to get a hold of us? We have a variety of ways to get a hold of the team of three. So let's talk really brief about what are MRSC rosters. It is the bridge that connects public agencies with businesses. Public agencies do select businesses to work on small works projects, consulting, and goods and services. So what are those three rosters? I want to hit home and say that there are three. There is a vendor roster, consultants, and small works. And with this new change that we just went through, the definition of what is small works, many of the things that were in small works months ago now have been converted over to the vendor roster, and those will be talked about. Maintenance things now are in the vendor roster. So let's talk briefly what a vendor roster is. It is product sales, it's equipment repair, vehicle maintenance, garbage collection, and other purchase services. And then the RCW is listed there. One thing I want everyone today to hear is if you want to be on the vendor roster and you don't want to pay, there is an option to choose up to 9 agencies for free. So if you're writing notes, 9 or less agencies, you do not have to pay. The next roster, let's talk about that one. That roster is the consultant roster. The consultant roster, what is it? Architects, engineers, surveying services, and a reference of an RCW there, as well as professional services, design, planning, management, real estate. It's listed there for you. Again, if you want to have a roster that is no cost to you, you choose up to 9. Now, earlier I said 9 for vendor, and now I'm saying 9 for consultant. It's a collective 9 for all rosters. So I wanted to define that. Okay, here's the one we've been all waiting for. The next one is the statewide small works roster. All right, so that roster is for construction, building, renovation, improvement, alteration, repair, one-time jobs. It did go into effect July 1st, and we have now opened up to support all state agencies in the small works roster. Public agencies are not required to use this roster and may still have their own if desired. Remember, small works roster is under $350,000. And no matter how many agencies you pick when you're on a small works roster, effective July 1st, is free. So that is a change. All right, so let's talk about the RCWs real quick. This is the new definition. Small works is small public works, and small works projects are slightly different now. The definition has changed. The biggest definition is maintenance, for instance, or continuous work. Janitorial now is in vendor, not small works. It used to be in small works. Also, landscaping used to be in small works. Now it's in vendor. So we will share a tool with you, and there's an Excel spreadsheet, the tool that I'm speaking of, that has a full list of all categories. And we suggest everybody take a look at their profile in the MRSC rosters to make sure they're properly classified. And I think the next slide is just a very much overview of the roster. What is it? State agencies now can use it. Updating your categories, pretty important to do so. There is automation. The application process is now automated, and L&I is data feeding into the application process, verifying some things. And OMWBE, if a certified firm is certified, it will also data transfer into your profile. So there's no need to communicate any of the eligibility for us. I guess it would be your state certification, as well as are you licensed? Do you have workman's comp? And have you been debarred? Those are the things that L&I shares. We're going to talk briefly about direct contracting under 150. That's an important threshold that people might want to write down and make note of. And then the OMWBE, state certified firms, are going to appear at the top when an agency is doing a search. Those firms are going to be shown first. That's a new thing. And then we have centralized data collection that is publicly available to see award results. And when you're doing market research and you are trying to figure out who is buying what you are selling, this data that we now have available is quite helpful. So with that being said, I'm going to pass this off to Brynn, and Brynn is going to talk to us about the state agencies and some other things. So Brynn, it's all yours.
Thanks, Lisa. So as Lisa touched on, we have a few state agencies that have moved over to MRSC rosters. So if you were previously on DES's roster, they have started to use ours. So they use our small works roster and consultant rosters. You'll see on Washington State Convention Center Public Facilities District, there's a little asterisk there. Later on, we'll show you how agencies are listed in the roster. Anyone with a little asterisk, that just means they're also using the vendor roster. So if the asterisk isn't there, they're only using the small works and or consultant. So these three right here are our new state agencies using the statewide roster. We're really excited to have them. So if you've been on their rosters previously, you're going to want to come sign up for ours now. We can move on to the next slide. Great. So as Lisa said, our RCW for small works definitions have changed slightly. So in order to reflect that in our categories, we've made a few changes. We've shuffled some things around to address those new definitions and to also organize things a little better in the way that agencies are going to be doing their searches. So on our website, and you'll get this link in the materials, you'll see in our About page, there's a section under Browse called Categories, and there you can download a full list of categories. And the next slide will show you what it looks like. Great. So when you download that list, it comes through as an Excel spreadsheet. A good trick we have here is just Control F if you're looking for a specific category or you're wondering if your business will fit in to any of these categories. So a little bit of the structure difference here you'll see in the columns. We'll start off with the roster. So it'll be small works, vendor, or consultant. And then if you're looking in the small works categories, that's where the changes are happening. So now we have what's called project type. So that's the highest level of the hierarchy there. And then underneath project type is going to be category. And then within those categories are services. So it's a little more defined. The scopes are a lot more clear. But you might notice, like Lisa said, that some of our vendor categories or some of our small works categories, excuse me, have changed to move over to the vendor to reflect that. So we really are recommending, if you've been previously registered for the small works roster, that you log in and review your category selection. All right, we can move on to the next one. And then as Lisa also touched on, we are now automatically verifying businesses. So previously, Theresa and I were touching every single business that created an application one at a time. It was very cumbersome, and we've just worked really hard with our developers to help streamline this. With LNI and OMWBE, we've been able to create a data bridge. So real time, you will complete your application and know if you're missing any of our eligibility requirements, which are listed here. Licensing, so you need a general or specialty contractor's license. Workers' comp if you have employees, and you can't be debarred. So that's what our system is looking for. If you don't meet those, you won't actually be able to complete your application until you've addressed those issues. If you do meet all those requirements, as soon as you submit your application, you are active and on the roster. That's really exciting. We are thrilled to have that kind of automatic verification. Little note there, you can go on to LNI's webpage, verify a contractor, and look your business up by UBI, just to make sure before you start your application that you meet all those requirements. Additionally, we have a direct feed with OMWBE. So we have streamlined our certification feed a little bit. We will no longer allow businesses to self-certify. We are only accepting OMWBE certifications, and only the 6 state certifications, which we'll talk about in the next slide. There we go. So for 1 year, I'm going to back up a little bit. For the new statewide small works roster, OMWBE has created a new gender and race neutral certification. And that's the one at the bottom, the PWSBE, which stands for Public Works Small Business Enterprise. So like I said, that's race and gender neutral. It's available to small businesses, and you can register for that through OMWBE. And that we'll talk about in the next slide in just a second. That will trigger these direct contracting rules. Because it's a new certification, we've worked with OMWBE and decided that we will accept any of the 6 state certifications to fulfill that direct contracting requirement through July 1st of next year. So if you do hold another state certification, but don't have your PWSBE, that's an easy opt-in through OMWBE, and we recommend you do that before July 1st of next year. And we can go to the next slide. So like I said, that certification comes into play through direct contracting. So new in July of 2024, agencies have the ability to utilize direct contracting for projects under $150,000. The way it will work is they will email businesses from their list directly. So they will still pull a solicitation list. In our system, they will indicate that they are doing direct contracting, and they'll pull a business from that list. They'll directly negotiate with them, and they will either come to an agreement or rotate onto an additional business if they are not able to come to an agreement with that business. We can move on to the next slide. So within that direct contracting, there is something called the rule of 6. So if an agency pulls their solicitation list and there are 6 or more OMWBE certified businesses, they must choose a certified business. They do have a mandate to rotate through businesses, but agencies do make their own rotation policy. So that will vary from agency to agency. But like I said, if there are 6 or more, they must negotiate with an OMWBE certified business. So that's why it's important to get certified if you're not already. This PWSBE specifically will continue to trigger this requirement. Next. So if there are 5 or less, just like if there are 6 or more, if there are 5 or less certified businesses on their solicitation list for this direct contracting job, they are able to reach out to any contractor on their list. They do not need to select a certified business. And this is also very exciting. New on our website, we have publicly available award data. So don't think we have a screenshot showing where it is on our website, but if you go to our website, at the very end of the tabs at the top, there is something called data. There you can find awarded jobs. You can see who they reached out to, who was on their list, and who was awarded for what amount. Next. And with that, I will pass it along to my colleague, Theresa.
Thank you, Brynn. Hey, everyone. Thanks for being here today. So I'm going to talk about this new feature for the small works roster data. Oh, we'll go back a slide. Sorry about that. So like Brynn said, this is new on our website. It's exciting. It followed the Senate Bill 5268 and just increasing transparency to businesses. So when you're on our website, MRSCRosters.org, our rosters homepage, it's a new tab on the right side of the About tab called Roster Data. So when you click on that, you can see recently closed jobs by the public agencies. They're the ones that input this data, and as you click on to expand where that arrow is for each job, you can see the awarded bid amounts along with your competitors, the other vendors who have bid on that same job. So really exciting, available to anyone that visits our page. Again, you don't have to have an account to view this or even log in. All right, next slide. All right, so statewide SmallWorks roster registration. I'll go through that in the next few slides. Fairly easy to apply and register. Our main homepage, mrscrosters.org. At the very top, you'll see a business tab and click on that. And then there'll be a button right there to say click to apply. And next slide. So when you are on the Choose Your Business page, it's actually sometimes common businesses accidentally choose the public agency sign up. Don't choose that, choose the business sign up. So click on that and then hit next. When you are on the Create Your Business sign up, it will pull up fields that you have to enter. If you're an out-of-state business, make sure to click on that. Please make sure to have your UBI number on hand, because if you mistype that, remember we talked about our move to automation with the data feed directly from LNI. If it's incorrect, it may be a different business that's not a SmallWorks business. You know, it may be just a business that doesn't even exist with that incorrect UBI number. So make sure to have all that on hand, because it's going to feed from LNI's data directly, and it may give you an error and prevent you from creating your account. So next slide. This is really important part of the application process. We do advise you to read through each roster type description and RCWs, just because depending on what your business does and the scope of services you provide, you may fall two or all three of the rosters for consulting and the vendor and SmallWorks. It's really, like I said, important to choose the right roster type, because it's going to apply those specific eligibility requirements to that particular roster, which the SmallWorks roster has more requirements versus the vendor and the consultant. Next slide. So choosing your categories, the vendor and the consultant roster hasn't changed much with the layout, but as Brynn covered, there are new project type hierarchy descriptions for the SmallWorks. So this is how it looks like when you're in there. As you click through it, you'll see that it'll open up the main categories and the subcategory services in that area that you can click through. And then next slide. And as you click through it at the very top, you'll see that gray box there. It kind of actually tallies all the services that you've selected. So you kind of have a little view before you can, go on to the next part of your application. Are these scope of services correct? And you definitely want to make sure that they are accurate. You don't want to willy-nilly click anything that is not within your scope, or else you'll be solicited with, you'll receive solicitations that are not within your scope of services, right? And you don't want to get job notifications or solicitation notifications that's not related to what your business does. The next slide. All right. Participating agencies, if you would like to know on the front end on our main website, a complete list, you want to just click on the About tab, and on the right side under Browse, you'll see under Registered Businesses, the Participating Agencies option there to click on. And once you click on that, it'll pull up a map of Washington on how to find public agencies. And active public agencies will appear on this public agency map if their membership is up to date. Sometimes these agencies will disappear because like yourselves, they have to renew their membership once a year. But unlike businesses, public agencies always pay a fee to utilize our services. So if they have a change of staff or they're not updating it, their name will actually, their public agency name will disappear from view. So they may be in here, but maybe they're not renewed as well. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes if a customer has reached out to you, your business, and says to get on the roster, but they're not viewable here, that sometimes might be the case, and it has happened a few times. So just know that these are active public agencies who pay their membership that will appear. And like Brynn had said, the asterisk that shows next to that agency says that they may be using the vendor roster as well. So you can take a look at what rosters they're using on our website. All right, so once you're logged in your application section, you can select the public agency rosters. So remember that this is a service that connects you to almost 750 public agencies currently. That's almost about 85% of Washington state public agencies that are utilizing our rosters, right? So it's important to make sure that you've selected agencies that you would like to potentially receive solicitations from. If you choose 9 total public agencies or fewer, remember Lisa had mentioned that it is a free membership for businesses for the vendor and the consultant rosters, 9 or fewer. That doesn't seem like much for the 750, but just know that that option is there. There is a fee scale on our homepage that talks about if you're using those other rosters, if you're using the vendor and consultant rosters and selecting more than the 9 public agencies that you want to connect with. If you work across a span of counties, like the entirety of Pierce County or King County, you can select each of those counties, and any new public agencies that emerge and join our rosters within that counties will automatically populate your public agency list. This is something that you can edit at any time. If a customer reaches out to you and says, hey, we can't find you, make sure to log into your MRSC account and make sure that they're listed here, because like I said, if you don't select them and opt into their roster, they cannot see your business. And that also is a common problem that public agencies and business say. We always get calls from either side saying, hey, we can't find this business, or how come our public agency can't find us? Always log in, just double check. All right, so capability statements. There is a section on the application to upload a capability statement. It is optional for all 3 rosters, but it is recommended. Businesses should have a capability statement uploaded to clearly and professionally showcase your qualifications, right? Differentiate yourselves from competitors, and enhance your chances of securing contracts and partnerships. So we do encourage you to upload one on your account, but just know that it's not a requirement. I think prior to our change, it was a requirement on the consultant roster to have a statement of qualifications, but I believe now it's optional. Next slide. All right, so this is very important. We want you to be aware that public agencies may use electronic bidding platforms just so it helps them organize and make their bidding process more efficient with receiving bids from vendors like you and also evaluating them. So you guys might be already familiar with manipulating or being participants of like OpenGov, Bonfire, Procureware. Every agency is, varies from agency to agency if they're using these types of softwares. MRSC does not send bid notifications to businesses. Again, no jobs posted. We don't send the bid notifications. All bid notifications and solicitations come directly from the public agencies themselves. The only thing that we kind of have a systematic reminder to the businesses is to remind you to renew your account yearly. That's pretty much it that comes through us. All right, so MRSC support, if you do need assistance and help, we are here to do so, here, including Apex as well. They can also help you with, for example, filling out your MRSC application, or if you need us to tweak anything into your application or just have some general questions, there's a number of ways to get a hold of us. You can contact us directly, our team directly. You can send tickets while you're logged in, or even on just our homepage, or even send us an email. Email and tickets are preferred if it's something pretty easy, but if it's a little bit of a a complicated case. Like, for example, some businesses have different regional offices with different UBIs, so they need separate accounts for the same type of business. We could do that for you manually, and that might be better for a phone call. So we're here for you. We're here to support you. Just hoping that this would be more ease of access and use now that we've automated things and we have a bigger team historically. So yeah, we're here to help. So this is a list of just frequently asked questions. You don't need to worry about writing these down. We will provide a PDF of the answers to these questions. We do have a FAQ link to our website as well. And yep, just the support tools you need to get a hold of us. And now I think I'm going to circle back to Tiffany to close out this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us the opportunity to talk to you more about the rosters.
Yeah, thanks, Theresa, and thanks, Brynn and Lisa. And so I just have a few more slides to wrap us up, and then we'll turn it over to your questions. I see Michael has his hand raised. That works too, or you can type them into the chat. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the events calendar. This slide is not pretty, but boys, there are a lot of events coming up. We call it government outreach season or networking season between government agencies and businesses. And there's a lot coming up in the month of September, October, and then into November and even December this year. So there is going to be an event near you with very limited exceptions. So feel free to hop onto our calendar at washingtonapex.org and attend one of these free events to connect with government agencies. And before you go there, have a plan of action as to what you're doing there, what questions you're going to ask. One of the questions might be, hey, government agency, are you using the MRSC statewide roster? Or are you using your other, how do you buy small public works? Might be an excellent question. And if you need help getting your capability statement ready to roll, you can reach out to one of the Apex advisors that can meet with you one-on-one to talk about kind of how to prepare for any one of these events. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to the Labor and Industries Contracting Days. These days are jam-packed with information on safety and L&I compliance, and they bring in attorneys and experts from L&I and other jurisdictions to talk a little bit to the small construction company population. So there's quite a few coming up in Edmonds and Spokane, and then one over in Bremerton. So washingtonapex.org, we offer no-cost assistance to businesses seeking government contracts and subcontracts. You already are aware of MRSC services, and you can find out more about their roster program at that link. And the two of us are in partnership with OMWBE and Labor and Industries to ensure that businesses are supported and ready to roll on these public works contracts. We're seeing high demand for businesses' participation in what government's needs are. And we want to make sure that you're prepared and ready and not caught off guard by any requirement that you might not have been aware of. So and the links to L&I. So you will get a copy of all of these slides with all of these links live in the PDF. So all you have to do is click them if you didn't write them down. You can also email info@washingtonapex.org, or you can also email support desk at MRSC if you have questions about government contracting or the rosters program itself. So prior to this event, about 2 hours ago, you received a slide deck. If you didn't get that, you will get it afterwards, along with the frequently asked questions that Theresa mentioned. So with that, we get to kind of, I'll stop my share here in a second and we'll do Q&A with all of you. There was a Q&A coming up earlier about, does the vendor roster include software engineering? So I don't know which one of you want to answer that, Brynn or Theresa or Lisa. Does the vendor roster include software engineering?
There are, so there is I believe it should. There is let's see, there's a complete list that can be downloaded, and I just want to know if it's exactly that title or not. Let me give me a
Okay, while you're
second
looking
here.
that up, I'm going to
But
go
yes.
I'm gonna
ahead
look it up.
and
In
Yeah.
in the vendor consultant, it's under the category computer. Sorry, I just had it up.
Yeah, right.
Computer
guess I should have this
software.
up.
Yeah, computer software is the higher category, and then within that there are some more specific software categories there.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
yes, it is in the vendor roster.
All right, Michael, I see your hand went down. If you still want to unmute and talk to us, feel free to raise that back up. In the meantime, I'm going to turn it over to Tristan Fields. I'm asking you to unmute. Feel free to unmute and ask your question. Tristan?
Hi, in the past, I'm a consulting arborist and landscape architect. In the past, the MRSC required almost like a huge brochure with project experiences and things like that. Is that still really helpful for the potential clients?
Kristen, if you're speaking of a statement of qualifications, I believe that anytime that you can present the value that you bring to public agencies, you're doing probably more than your competitor. And with that 150 and under direct contracting option, you could be selected based on what you're presenting and what they know about you. So may that be through a statement of qualifications. It's not a requirement, but it is heavily suggested that you have one as a consultant. If you're on the vendor roster and that's how they find you, which I believe, Brynn and Theresa, you can help me out on this one. Landscaping, arborist, tree trimming, pruning, that went into the vendor roster through this change. So a capability statement, which is a smaller publication, it's a front and a back, or it's a very concise, saying what is it that you do, who have you worked for, and what is it that you do possibly different than anybody else out there. So to answer your question, Tristan, yes to capability statements, yes to statements of qualifications, and generally a statement of qualifications is much longer. And when you are being asked to present, when you are selected by an agency, they may then dictate what they want to see in a statement of qualifications. So
I think one other
you can
thing,
approach both of those generically, but then you can also direct after you know who's asking you for more information. Go for it,
thanks,
Tiffany. What do you got?
Lisa. Sorry to interrupt you. I was going to add, think of the MRSC roster profile as a marketing component. So you want to make sure you put your best foot forward and have appropriate capitalization, for example, of your company name. You want to have an accurate and up-to-date capability statement or a statement of qualifications in there. And the reason that's more important than ever is because of the direct buy ability. If what you sell is valued at under $150,000, then they have the capability of direct buying. If you're in the certified firms, or if there's not enough certified firms, they can just pick off the list. So if you shine and you look great, you're more likely to get work as a result. Otherwise, you're just one of the however many folks are on that list. So hope that helps.
I also wanted to add that it was a requirement to have that, but MRSC did not dictate the layout and everything. There was just kind of a size requirement. It couldn't be so large, so we never really verified whether it was like a good template to have or not. We usually forward businesses to Apex to produce that and upload. So we still don't take a look at whether it's accurate or not, or the template's current. So definitely reach out to your Apex counselor.
Great, thanks. Any other questions? I don't see any in the Q&A. Let's see.
I had one more. Sorry about that.
Please go ahead. Yep.
It just since I'm a consulting arborist and landscape architect, would the Apex, so I'm a designer, basically. I do a lot of CAD work. I don't do landscaping. Would the Apex consultant be able to help me classify myself? Is that who I should go through?
You can start with us to fine tune kind of what a strategy would be for capturing public sector work. If it's exactly which category inside the MRSC roster, I bet Theresa and Brynn could be more apt to assist. Is that a good way to answer that, Theresa?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And also,
So- okay.
another way to define Tristan is to do some market research with Apex using keywords and things that you have done. And with that market research, it will uncover which agencies are buying what you're selling. And we heavily encourage you to reach out to those agencies and ask, what categories are you using? So I have those on my profile. And that is what this whole entire year, we're asking businesses to go and talk to public agencies after you know who's buying what you're selling. And that starts really with the market research that Apex can help with.
Yep, wonderful. And we have another landscape architect on the line, so it's appreciate your
Right.
questions. It's always helpful. There's another question about it says it was mentioned that the MRSC platform is not the platform for subcontracting and for subs to connect with primes. What platform would be better to help me connect? And unfortunately, there is no central platform that all the prime contractors use, which makes your job really hard as a subcontractor. It kind of starts with really solid market research and honing in on which primes you think you might want to do business with and why. So if you're in the Port of Seattle area, for example, you're in South King County, and you heard that they have a lot of opportunity coming down the pike, then you might consider connecting with, the 5 or 6, 7 prime contractors that are frequently winning the historic work at the port, and finding out how to become a subcontractor in their portals. And we actually have an event coming up in September that will have a prime panel, and we'll have 4 prime contractors on the line in a webinar format, and they're going to share kind of what drives them crazy about subcontractors, what they look for in subcontractors. It's going to be a really nice, honest conversation about how you can position your firm to be more successful at getting noticed by primes. So I'll, unless Tori, say Tori is on the line. Tori is our fantastic intake coordinator at Apex. I'm hoping she has the calendar up and can pop that into the chat. It's in mid-September sometime. So I'll be hopefully putting that in the chat in the next couple of minutes. Any other questions? Now is the time. You got 4 super smart experts on the line. All right, well then we'll leave you with some parting thoughts. So my parting thought before I turn it over to the MRSC team is to spend a little bit of time on preparing for all of these outreach events. And when you go to the events, you can confidently say, yeah, I'm on the roster and I know that you use it. What projects do you have coming up? And can I share with you my capability statement? Kind of be prepared to go into these events, because the government's coming out. They're coming out from their cubicles to these events. There's staffing tables. They're going to be networking with businesses. And it's a fantastic opportunity to learn as much as you can. So Lisa, did you have any closing tips?
One of my closing tips is to look at your roster. If you are on the rosters now, please review your rosters to see that you're adequately representing what you do. I really encourage that. We spend a lot of time helping people navigate categories. And as Tiffany said too, networking is really important at this point of small work. Agencies need to know you, and to have a capability statement is I think, a bare minimum. And to work with your Apex counselors, they do capability statements all day long, right, Tiffany? Yes, they do. Okay. Theresa, Brynn, any tips, tricks?
I see a hand with Angelique. Did we want to answer her question?
Oh, yeah, you bet.
Yep. Okay.
Angelique, let me allow you to talk. Okay, go ahead.
I see that you gave us information on how to connect with primes and everything in the chat. I tried to copy and paste the chat into a Word Excel, but it wouldn't allow me. Is there a way we can get copies of these links that you have in the chat?
Yes. So far, I think all the links in chat are event related.
Okay,
And so the events calendar is linked in the PowerPoint slide, which you should have.
okay.
Otherwise, that's really the only link you need is the washingtonapex.org link, and then click on our calendar.
And you email that? You're gonna email that to everyone?
Yeah, Lisa, do you mind including that in the email? That'd be great.
Okay,
You bet.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. All right, closing thoughts, Theresa.
We're also usually at these events, so stop by, you know, and please reach out to us when you need help. We're here to help you and, you know, help you kind of understand the process, any type of, any error, because we're still automating things. So I know that there are some few errors that are on there where it's a work in progress. So just let us know if the website is not working for you right now. So let us know.
Very good. Brynn, did you have anything?
Similar vein as Theresa, you've got our contact information. There's no such thing as a stupid question. So big or small, we're here to help you if you have some questions about your categories, or like Theresa said, if you're experiencing any issues, just reach out to us.
Wonderful. Yeah, we want to see that $10 billion worth of work coming out. We want to see it go to the businesses that we work with. So let us see how we can help you. With that, I think we are formally adjourned. I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank MRSC for your partnership with the Apex Accelerator, and have a great day. Thank you.